Have you ever questioned the real purpose of education? It's a question that many have wondered about, and a mystery that we still don't completely understand. We frequently accept educational standards as we go about our daily lives without fully appreciating their underlying purpose. We're going to explore this very topic today, looking at it from a philosophical angle. We'll look at several viewpoints, including existentialist and progressivist, as well as conservative ones. Every viewpoint challenges our preconceptions and provides a distinct viewpoint on the goals and approaches of education. Please join us in this thought-provoking conversation. Have you ever considered the purpose of education? Which approaches actually accomplish the goal of education? And how do these various philosophical viewpoints fit or disagree with what you understand? It's time to question our assumptions, to assess our current understanding, and to stretch the limits of what we know. So, grab a seat as we set off on this thought-provoking expedition to discover the meaning of education. First, we'll start by discussing the traditionalist perspective on education. The conservative perspective is a timeless proof of what works when it comes to educational ideologies. This viewpoint focuses primarily on the dissemination of knowledge and the development of intellectual abilities. It's a philosophy that honors the wisdom of the past and respects the classics. According to traditionalists, education is a trip that requires a map, just like any other travel. In this instance, that map represents an organized curriculum. The blueprint, which gives the instructor and the student a clear route, is a curriculum that is well defined. It provides an overview of the what, when, and how of learning, making sure that no crucial information is overlooked. Based on this perspective, the teacher's job is vital. Instructors are viewed as the guardians of wisdom, serving as mentors to pupils as they embark on their educational journey. They are the ones holding the light, guiding the path with their knowledge and wisdom. Within the conventional classroom, the instructor assumes the role of the wise man or woman, the figurehead who bestows knowledge and encourages study. However, the traditionalist viewpoint goes beyond just rote learning and information assimilation. Critical thinking and problem-solving abilities are also emphasized. Sure, numbers and statistics are vital, but so is the capacity to evaluate, comprehend, and use that information. Not only is knowledge acquisition the aim, but the mind itself should be shaped and given the resources it needs to study for the rest of one's life. Additionally, discipline, order, and deference to authority are valued in this worldview. It's about establishing a setting that supports learning, one in which pupils can concentrate and flourish in the absence of outside distractions. It's about establishing in them a feeling of accountability, reverence for the law, and dedication to their own learning. Thus, you may see a typical classroom as having rows of desks, a chalkboard, a teacher at the front, and pupils who are engrossed in studying with their books open. This is how the traditionalist perspective presents things. Furthermore, even if it could appear outdated to others, many instructors still find value in it worldwide. In summary, the traditionalist viewpoint values teacher-led education and structured learning. Let's go to the progressivist perspective now. Imagine a school where developing critical thinking and problem-solving abilities takes precedence than memorization of dates or formulae. This sums up the progressive perspective on education. This viewpoint's primary tenet is that learning should be student-centered. Progressivists support a customized curriculum that addresses the individual needs and interests of every student rather than a curriculum that is designed to accommodate all students. Not only is it our goal to impart facts to the kids, but we also hope to pique their curiosity and motivate them to pursue knowledge on their own. Real-world applicability is also emphasized as being important by the progressivist view. For pupils to learn about scientific ideas or historical events in abstract form is insufficient. They ought to be able to use this information in realistic, useful situations. For example, a biology lecture may include a field trip to a nearby nature reserve, while a math class would assign a project on budgeting for a trip. Furthermore, progressivists think that learning ought to be a cooperative endeavor. Acquiring knowledge involves more than merely memorizing facts from lectures or textbooks. It involves having meaningful conversations, cooperating on group tasks, and picking up knowledge from both professors and peers. This method gives kids the social skills they need to succeed in the outside world, while also fostering a feeling of community in the classroom. In addition, the progressivist perspective maintains that education ought to be adaptable and dynamic. Our educational system should change along with the globe. This entails keeping up with emerging educational theories and technology, and being flexible enough to innovate and adjust as needed. Lastly, progressives contend that education ought to focus on more than merely scholastic success. In addition, it ought to foster civic and moral characteristics and educate pupils to be accountable, kind members of society. Therefore, the progressivist view promotes critical thinking and practical application. We then explore the existentialist perspective on education. The philosophical movement known as existentialism, which first appeared in the middle of the 20th century, is based on the idea that existence comes before essence. This implies that rather than any innate quality or essence, who we are as people is shaped by our deeds, decisions, and experiences. What role does this play in education then? An existentialist perspective on education places a strong focus on the individual and their unique path of self-discovery. This viewpoint contends that education ought to be customized to the individual's distinct experiences and viewpoints, rather than being a one-size-fits-all approach. Individuality and personal preference are highly valued in this ideology. It makes the argument that every individual is an independent entity who ought to be supported in making their own decisions. This translates into encouraging pupils to take personal responsibility in the educational setting. Students are urged to ask questions, think critically, and take responsibility for their education. Self-awareness is also highly valued in existentialism. It challenges people to go deeply within themselves and comprehend their feelings, wants, and anxieties. Since we can only fully comprehend others when we first understand ourselves, this in turn cultivates a profound feeling of empathy and understanding for others. There are others who disagree with the existentialist perspective on education. Some contend that its emphasis on personal choice and uniqueness can lead to a lack of structure and discipline, as well as self-centeredness. Advocates of this concept contend that these objections are unfounded. They contend that the application of existentialism in the classroom cultivates empathy, self-awareness, and a feeling of personal accountability, all of which are essential abilities for negotiating the complexity of today's world. In summary, the existentialist approach to education focuses on creating a setting in which learners are empowered to investigate their own identities, exercise agency over their education, and take ownership of their education. Thus, the existentialist perspective encourages introspection and accountability. Now that the three philosophies have been examined, it is time to contrast and compare. Let's start by examining the traditionalist viewpoint. Based on the idea that knowledge is final, it prioritizes the dissemination of accepted ideas, beliefs, and principles. According to this perspective, the teacher is the protector and authority on this information. The progressivist school of thought, on the other hand, holds that knowledge is a dynamic concept. It prioritizes critical thinking, problem-solving, and the growth of social skills, and promotes student-centered learning. In this case, the instructor acts more as a guide, creating a safe space for the pupils to learn and develop. Next is the philosophy of existentialists. This approach emphasizes individual responsibility and choice, placing the learner at the center of the process. It encourages self-realization and self-discovery as the ultimate objectives of education. Here, the instructor plays the role of a facilitator, assisting pupils in finding their own special life pathways. These philosophies have certain things in common, even if they have different viewpoints on knowledge and the responsibilities of instructors and students. The significance of education in molding people and societies is acknowledged by all three. They may disagree on the best ways to accomplish this, but they both believe that children must learn how to think critically and solve problems. Regarding methodology, existentialists and progressivists tend toward more flexible, student-centered approaches, whereas traditionalists prefer an organized, teacher-led approach. All three philosophies, however, place a high importance on teacher-student contact, since they consider it to be an essential component of learning. It's also important to consider how various ideas affect the goal of education. Education is viewed as a tool for social transformation by progressivists, a way of preserving and transmitting cultural legacy by traditionalists, and a path towards self-discovery and personal satisfaction by existentialists. In summary, despite their differences, these ideologies all seek to provide people with the knowledge and skills they need to successfully navigate the world. What then are the lessons to be learned from various philosophical viewpoints on education? We have examined the essence of existentialist, progressivist, and traditionalist perspectives in great detail in this investigation. It is evident that traditionalists favor imparting information to pupils in order to provide them with the means of surviving in society. On the other side, progressivists support experiential learning as a means of encouraging critical thinking and creativity. The existentialists encourage pupils to forge their own paths, by emphasizing human freedom and responsibility in a very different way. These meanwhile are but a handful of the numerous viewpoints about the aim of education. Its versatility and capacity to represent so many different things to so many different individuals are what make it so beautiful. It's an intricate tapestry made up of the strands of many worldviews, cultural norms, and changing demands. Recall that there are several solutions to the issue of why education is necessary and that your perspective might influence the course of your education.